Hello, everyone, and welcome again to this special event, which is part of the series of talks organised by the British Union of Spiritist Societies to celebrate the 175th anniversary of the birth of the French Spiritist philosopher Léon Denis. I'm Adam Osborne, and I'm here on behalf of BUS. And today we are joined by Alexandre Caldini, who will be talking about the book Le Pourquoi de la Vie, or The Why of Life, by Léon Denis. This event has been organised by the British Union of Spiritist Societies and is being streamed on both YouTube and Facebook in partnership with the Irish Spiritist Federation, Kardec Radio, and us here at Kardec Group. Please make sure that you give a thumbs up, a like, and share this event. And don't forget to follow and subscribe to these channels too, because we need the support. Thank you very much. And don't forget to send us a hello in the comments or the chat area and just let us know where you're watching from, because we love to say hello to all our international watchers. So make sure that you stay with us until the very end, as we will always have some announcements from the British Union, as well as a Q&A with Alexandre. So let's introduce our guest. Alexandre Caldini is an author and lecturer from Sao Paulo, Brazil, who graduated in business in Brazil, as well as having studied at Cambridge, at the London Business School, at Harvard, at MIT, and at INSEAD in France. He has written 3 books about Spiritism and is a commentator for TV Mundo Maior and Rádio Boa Nova in Brazil. Today, Alexandre will be talking about this book by Léon Denis called Le Pourquoi de la Vie, the reason or the why of life. Now remember, like I said, if you have any questions, please send them in the comment area and we'll get to them later. But let's bring out our guest. Alexandre, hello, how are you? And what can you tell us about this very fascinating book?
Hello, Adam. So glad to be with you. I would like to thank Elsa for the invitation. Very glad to be with you. And congratulations for this effort that you all putting together to help to spread the word of Spiritism all over the world. So it's a great honor to be with you today. As you mentioned, we're going to be talking about one of Léon Denis' books. In French, as you said, Le Pourquoi de la Vie. In Portuguese, O Porquê da Vida, and in English, we have the translator, The Why of Life. Maybe the reason of life would be the best translation of it. So basically, I would like to start thanking Elsa for this opportunity. She did invite me, and she helped me a lot by giving the translation she's made on this book. It's not published yet, but Elsa gave me the translation. Thank you so much, Elsa. It did help a lot. I used your words on the presentation today. Basically, friends, I would like to say the following. This is a Brazilian guy who speaks from Italian background, from Italian family, who speaks Portuguese, who's going to be talking about Frenchmen in English. So that's quite confusing. And for that, my apologies if translation doesn't go so well. Try my best, but there's plenty of different languages in the table. Maybe many of you know already Léon Denis. You have seen the previous speakers about other books of Léon Denis, but just a very brief introduction on who is our honored guest today, right? Léon Denis is French. He was born in 1846, and he lived a long life until he reached 81 years old, actually. Maybe after Kardec, together with Gabriel Delany and a few others, he was one of the most important speakers of Spiritism, mainly in the beginning of Spiritism in Europe. He wrote 19 books, and one of the things about his books that you might find, as I did, is they are very profound, they're very logical, but it's still very easy to understand. This is a short book. Actually, in Portuguese, it's only 45 pages, I guess. So it's a book you read in a couple of hours easily. What I like about Léon Denis is that he's very precise. He's very much more for the philosophical side of Spiritism than for the religious side of it. And for my surprise, I discovered that in the Spiritist Congress in 1925, he was one of the guys who defended that we keep Spiritism also as with a religion aspect. I'm much more pro to see Spiritism as a philosophy. As Kardec himself says in one of his books, the what is Spiritism, he says, we're not atheists, but that doesn't mean that we're religious. So from my understanding, and Denis is also very into the philosophy, it is a philosophy. But let's see how it goes. This is what Adam just said. The original was Pourquoi de la vie, a solution rationnelle pour les problèmes de l'existence. In English would be a rational solution for existential problems. And the questions are fantastic. What we are, where do we come from, where do we go? This was published originally in Paris in 1892. Take a look at this. This is interesting. He doesn't say who we are. He says what we are. That already gives a clue of what we'll be talking about. Not who we are as a persons, but are we body? Are we soul? What are we, right? So in the beginning of the book, Léon Denis, and this is one of his pictures, one of the few pictures I could find. He was already much older than the previous picture. He says the following: it's in your intention, afflicted, descended from this world that I write. This is the fruit of my vigils, of my reflections and my hopes, of all what has comforted me and sustained me throughout my journey. I thought this was very beautiful because it's very clear again. He says, as anyone else, I have doubts. I have to understand life, to understand what is it all about? Why am I here? Who am I? What am I? What am I doing? What should I do? And he shares that with us. And he says that when he starts reflecting about all these questions in life, he became more comforted and more sustained through the journey, which is a good clue for us as well. Perhaps we should be doing the same. The book is on 9 chapters, very small chapters, as I mentioned, and we're going to go through all of them in very few minutes. Chapter 1 talks about duty and freedom. And he says freedom is coming, but for that we have to acquire wisdom. It's necessary that we compound wisdom with freedom, and once we do so, a fantastic and new world will come. So in the beginning, he says there is a tremendous problem, a problem that every one of us are always facing, which is the questions, right? Who out of us has never asked the secret of life, secret of things, the why of life, the reason for being of the whole entire universe? Why are trees and leaves green, not blue, for example? Why birds fly, I cannot fly? Why everything? And who of us, he says, doesn't want to know my own destiny? The mystery after death. What happens? Are we still alive after we die, or once we die, nothing else exists? And the key question for all of us, God. Is God a chimera? Does it exist? Is it a person? What is God? That's something he's going to talk about in this book as well. But he says basically what happened is throughout the journey of man, there was so much incoherence and so many theories about everything that man became skeptical and a bit indifferent about this. That's easy. We can see that very easily. Not too long ago, a friend of mine gave me a research from Pew Institute in the US, and it was amazing. I can't remember the number exactly, but I think something like 80 million US citizens declare themselves religious without religion. Meaning, I do believe in something, or I do even believe in God, but I don't see myself in none of those religions. They don't fulfill me. What they say, I don't believe it. So that's basically it, perhaps. In Brazil, it's quite common. People say, well, I have my own religion. I take bits and pieces of every single religion, and I mold them into my own religion. For me, this is what people are saying. I don't trust in any of those things. They don't match for me, but I do believe in something. The solution that Mr. Denis tells us is the following. If you want to know the answers for all those very deep questions, you should do the following. You should disconnect from any preconceived system, for any preconceived information you might have. And then go inside, go into your own self, go to the bottom of yourself, and quietly hear the voice that's inside of you. Of course, it's not a voice. It's your thought, it's your thinking. Basically, he says, we have the answer inside of us. It's all there. We have to listen to the voice of reason, to the voice of our own conscience, which is very interesting. And then he adds to that, after having doubt, I believed. After having denied, I saw. And peace, once I did that, peace, trust, and moral strength descended on me. I think this is superb. This is superb. It says, well, I am skeptical, and it's good to be skeptical. Now, to a certain level, it's fantastic. You cannot accept everything. You have to, Spiritism says you have to pass everything through your mind before you accept it. Does it make sense? This does it not. Why this is right? Why this is wrong? I mean, we should always pass everything through our senses. But he says, after all that, finally he was in peace. And once he was in peace, he started to trust himself, trusting the world, the reality, and everything that. And then he was able to act morally because everything started to make sense. So that's good clue as well. Perhaps we should pay more attention to our own inside voice. And he says, once we do that, a fantastic transformation is coming. After centuries under authority, Mr. Denis says, now we aspire to be free. We aspire to be free of any obstacle, any authority that demands us to do this or that. Freedom in all areas, he says, will replace authoritarianism. Freedom of thought and consciousness, the right of some has to be the right of everyone else. And once that happens, fantastic new horizons should open to ourselves. But when he says that, it does remind me of something I've seen a lot in my life as an executive. Many thinkers of the business environment says it's coming to the end of the so-called command and control era. You can see that very easily, mainly on the new generations, people who are under 40, let's say. They don't want to have someone saying, do this, do that, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. They want to do what they believe is true. And that's changing the world. So at least in the business side, in the business arena, command and control is vanishing. People don't want a boss anymore. They want a leader. So in that sense, what Léon Denis says here is very much happening already. He says it's coming the time for empowerment, for autonomy, and for freedom. But if that sounds good, he also says, well, wait a minute. For empowerment, autonomy, and freedom, you need to also be wise. You need to acquire wisdom, responsibility, and morality, because both have to go together. Freedom, authority, empowerment without wisdom, responsibility, and morality, it's chaos. And that's probably why, until now, within the history of humanity, we had someone on top of us. We had an authority saying, do this, don't do that. Sometimes it was the king. Other times it was religion, right? Or your own boss. But now maybe we're coming to a time, as spirits, we have developed for so many centuries, for thousands of years, maybe millions of years. Maybe it's coming to the time when we can take care of ourselves. We can control ourselves. And once we do so, he says, peace and progress will come. We could translate this into the change of Earth. We Spirit says that Earth is transforming itself from a place of, I don't know how to say prova expiação in English, but anyhow, a place where evil is higher, is bigger than good things, to a new world of progress where we're going to be more calm, more developed, let's put it this way. Chapter 2, he talks about what he calls the problems of existence. Basically is the consequences of materialism. Let's see what he says. He said, what matters? What's really important for mankind? What matters to us is what he or she is, where he or she comes from, where he or she goes, what's his or her destiny. That's what we care. And he says this is very important because once we know that, from there we'll direct our lives. We must know who we are, what's the objective of our being here in this earth, in this family, in this country. I'm in Brazil with my family. Maybe Adam is in Britain with his family. Maybe there are some people in Japan watching now or in the future with his or her family. So it's a different scenarios for each one of us. So the role all of us perform on this scenario is something we should research and try to understand, because that's going to drive our life. That's going to drive the way we are. He says, according to its views, so is the person. And this is very important as well. See how many tips he gives us on this little book. If you think about someone in your family or a friend of yours, people who are very long face and everything's bad and life is tough and you should defend yourself at all means, because that's how life it is. This is a jungle. You certainly know someone like that, don't you? Maybe you're thinking about a relative of yours or a friend of yours or someone at your work. So the way we behave, the way we see our lives, the way we see ourselves, the way we see the world is the way we're going to act or react to the world. Right? So that's why it's so important to know ourselves. And he says the main problem is our ignorance. Once we don't pay enough attention to our own development, once we are ignorant, as the word of it, as the real meaning of being ignorant, not knowing something or not knowing much, he compares that to a traveler who doesn't know where it starts, doesn't know where he's aiming to, doesn't know the objective of this trip, so it doesn't matter. You get lost all the time. And more, you get distracted by little things in your life. Instead of aiming your target, which, given a spoiler here, in terms of Spiritism, is to develop yourself, to develop your mind, to develop your intellectual abilities, and to develop your moral side, your moral abilities as well. So we grow both intellectually and morally, right? We should pay attention to both of these curves. So he says, once we don't know who we are, where we're going, what's our objective in life, you get distracted by many things and you don't develop as much as you could, as much as you should for your own good. Take a look. He says, without knowing, we're wasting time, we're neglecting the goal. And what is the goal again? To become better people, to improve ourselves, to help to improve the life of everyone around us. If we do so, we're improving the life of every single human being. We're improving the life of humanity. Talking about materialism, he says, if you don't believe in anything, if you don't believe there's anything after life, if you don't believe there's anything apart from what you can see and touch, apart from the material stuff around you, why bother? Why bother? If that's the only thing that exists, well, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be a good person. You don't have to try to improve yourself. You don't have to try to have a good relationship with your family and friends and colleagues, because it doesn't matter. He says, if you go in that direction, no other law applies apart from your instincts, your appetites, and your joys. And strange enough, and I'm sorry to see that, there are some people who are like that in life. The hedonists, they want to have a lot of fun, a lot of pleasure, not just a little, a lot, not later, now. So I want to have everything I can have now and more and more and more. That's a very tough life, because life is not like that. We have a lot of difficulties and problems in life, and they're important because they teach us. Spiritism says that the problems are, challenges to our brains. You have to think how you can overcome that difficulty. Once you do, you acquire some knowledge. Then a second problem comes, and a third, and a fourth. And the problems become more difficult. It's just like a school. Once you start to add 2 and 2, then you're going to have to learn how to multiply 2 and 2, and then to divide 10 by 2 or something. And then you improve in mathematics, for example, improve. There's always going to be a problem. That's one of the beauties of Spiritism. If you go to a Spiritist center looking for a solution for your problems, looking for a quote unquote a miracle, forget it. You won't get it. The beauty of Spiritism is that it doesn't help you, it doesn't solve your problems. It does help you to understand your life and consequently your challenges, which you might call problems as well. And then you empower yourself to solve those problems. And that's fantastic, because that's really what he mentioned, empowerment. Maybe it's not yet for everyone, because some people don't want to have the trouble, right? It's common in Brazil, I don't know, in Britain or somewhere else. People say, oh, you're going to the Spiritist Center. Could you please take my name there? I'm really having a tough time. Please pray for me. Nah, go yourself, pray for yourself. Don't give someone else this obligation, right? He says about denying the future as well, to deny the future. If you deny the future, there's no moral section that could apply to you. And it says, then there's no difference if you are martyr or apostle, or if you're just a person who does nothing. I mean, what's the use if you don't believe in anything? If you believe the same darkness will cover all of us. But then he says, but if you believe so, how do you explain many things, among them the inequality of existences? He says the belief in nothingness leaves the problem of inequality of existences unsolved. Why so much diversity of faculties, skills, situations, and merits? Why to some all the gifts of spirit and heart and the favors of the fortune, while so many others have shared but nothing but intellectually poverty, vices, and misery? How do you explain that? That's a big question, isn't it? Many people say God does not exist because it's not fair. It's not fair. Brothers and sisters, they're so different. It seems like to one of them, everything is wonderful, everything is fantastic. And for the other one, nothing's good. Only problems, only a very tough life. Why is that? I mean, they were raised by the same mom and dad, same genetics. How do you explain that? Maybe they're even twins, but they're so different. Spiritism explains the following. One of them is a much older spirit, was created much earlier than this one. Or it did improve himself, herself faster. It took the duty to improve one's habits, morally, intellectually. The other one is either is a younger spirit, was created not so long ago, so has got to learn a lot to come to the same point, or they were created, say, both at the same time, but this one speed up the process. This one said, well, I don't really care. I just want to have a good time. Come on, I can do that later. I mean, no one's good. Why should I be? You know, this type of positioning itself or himself or herself that let him. Then it's no surprise that this one life seems much better than this one. They have the same problems, but this one reacts in a much better way because he or she already knows how to deal with the problems. This one still not know how to deal. He's going to fight. He's going to, it's going to go like that. He's going to suffer much more than this other one. Does it make sense to you? Chapter 3, Spirit and Matter. This is basically going to talk about the body versus the spirit. It's going to explain the differences between the two. The spirit, how does he explain the spirit? There's no effect without a cause. Nothing comes out of nowhere. These are axiomas. In other words, these are undisputable truths. If there is an effect, there must be something causing that effect, right? In us, there are forces that cannot be considered being material. They come from another source besides matter. This is the principle we call soul or spirit. Take a look what a simple, very easy to understand explanation Léon Denis gives us on what is the spirit. Normally, when I'm trying to explain to people how Spiritism says the spirit, I said, well, the spirit is what we are. Is what I think, what I've learned, what I know, the quality of my thinking, right? What I have acquired already. That's me. That's the spirit. And I don't have a spirit. I am a spirit. What I have is a body. Actually, I don't have a body. I was lended a body, right, to act here. But I'll give it away again. I'll give it back when I die, when my body dies, right? But basically here, Léon Denis explains the spirit very simply. He says, there is something that's not matter. That's the spirit. And then he puts what he calls the August principles. He says here, getting to know ourselves and analyzing our faculties, removing the rubble that life accumulates and undressing from our prejudices, errors, and sophism. I want to put a period there. Take a look. Analyze yourself, know yourself, take away all the things that, the preconceived information that you have. If you analyze yourself without prejudice, errors, and sophisms, you penetrate in what he calls the innermost recesses of ourselves. You penetrate, you're really in touch with yourself then. And there you're going to find, according to him, 3 august principles: the love of good, the sense of justice, and the will to progress. Look how interesting. We all want, all of us, even the worst person on earth, even that horrible criminal, he or she also loves someone or something. Maybe it's a pet, but he does love him. We all want the sense of justice. Even the ones who do very unfair things, they believe in justice. They believe they're doing justice. And we all want to progress, want to become better people, more wise, more prepared. And he says, these principles cannot come from matter devoid of such attributes. A chair doesn't love anyone. A chair doesn't have a sense of justice, and a chair doesn't want to become a sofa, doesn't want to progress to become a sofa, right? A chair is a chair, period. Has no feelings, no intelligence, nothing. That's the difference between us and matter. Distinct from the matter, he says, we esteem virtue, beauty, and truth. We admire great deeds and achievements. We feel, we love, we have conscience, will, and reason. The harmony, the beauty of things enchanted us. Take a look at the sea, at the forests, at the sky, at the people, at a good painting at one of the museums. The harmony of all those enchanted us, the beauty, the truth, the virtue. All this, it could not have the same origin as the flesh and the blood that make our body. It has to come from somewhere else. With all that, all this virtue, beauty, truth, admiration, love, will, reason, all this together, with all that, nothing would distinguish us from matter. Impossible, isn't it? He says, man comes from 2 natures, one from the matter, one from the spirit. From the matter is what you know, the body, the organs. And from the spirit, the intellectual and moral faculties, right? And he compares that to a car. And when I saw that, I said, whoa, wait. When he wrote this book, there were no cars yet. Then I went to something called Google, and I looked when the first car was developed, was launched. It was Mr. Carl Benz from Germany in 1885. So only 7 years before Léon Denis wrote this book, there was the very first car was developed. So he says, actually, he doesn't say car, he says the wheels. He says the body are the wheels, and the wheels cannot move without a motor, and the motor is the spirit. So the spirit commands the body, right? It's not my hand that's commanding my fingers. It's my mind that's commanding my fingers to go like this, right? I'm giving an order to my fingers, do move your fingers, right? And who does the link between the two? Just like in the car, you have the wires, you have the belts that transform the power from the motor to the wheels. Same happen here. There's something called the perispirit. The perispirit is the link between the spirit and the body. He's going to talk a little bit more about this perispirit in a while. But basically, the perispirit, for you that might not know, is a very less, not so material body that covers, quote unquote, covers the spirit. Once we leave our body on earth, once we die, the body stays, the spirit goes. But the spirit doesn't go by itself. It goes with a very unmaterial body called perispirit. I put this picture here because I thought this would illustrate a little bit what's our body. Take a look what he says. The body is but a borrowed garment, an instrument, with the help of which the soul continues in this world its work of purification and progress. Spiritual life is the normal life, the true and the endless life. And why did I put this gentleman here diving? Because we're not able to dive, deep diving for many minutes without the proper equipment. We have to have this neoprene clothes. We have to have the cylinder. We have to have all the equipment, right? So for us, human beings, to be able to live and act underwater, we have to have a special equipment, just like this. Same for the spirit. We as spirits could not act properly on earth, on material earth, like where we are nowadays, without the body. The body is nothing but an instrument, a garment, as it says, that was given to us for a certain time to use and to give it back. Same with this guy. After he goes diving, he will give it back, all the equipment, to the owner of the equipment, and he will keep going his life without all this, right? So that's the understanding Spiritism has about the body. Body is an instrument. You should take good care of your instrument, but it's not more than an instrument. Chapter 4, he talks about the harmony of the universe. Basically, he will talk about God, the plan that God administrates the whole entire universe, the harmony on the universe. Let's see. Starting about God. Take a look at this drawing. This is God. Is this God? Well, according to him, no. According to the Spiritism, no. God is what? Look at the definition Léon Denis gives us. The source of the rational principle in its poor and insufficient language, men call this source God. Fantastic, isn't it? Spiritism says God is the intelligence beyond everything, right? The primary intelligence that creates everything. He puts in a different way here. He says, we don't have the words. I would kind of disagree with Léon Denis here. Who am I to disagree on him? But I would say the insufficient language. I would say the insufficient knowledge that we have. I believe we don't understand God. And because we don't understand God, we put faces to God. Funny enough, the face we place to God, it's a white man, it's a man, and it's a very brave man with long faces. Oh, and it's an elderly man as well. Because this is the way we religious beliefs put God to us. That's the way we pictured God. But he says, no, God is much better than that. To claim that God can be diminished by the purpose of man is to say that the Himalayas can be shaken by the breath of a mosquito. Truth hangs radiant, dazzling, high above the theological obscurities. So God is something much more wise, wide, bigger, difficult even to express what God is. Not who God is, what God is. Again, he says, we have a poor, insufficient language to try to understand or to express what God is. But he goes further. He says, God is the center from which all emanate and to which all the powers of universe return. Good definition, huh? God is the focus of where every idea of justice, solidarity, and love radiates. The common goal to which all beings move, consciously or unconsciously. Meaning what? It doesn't matter if you believe in God or don't believe in God. God doesn't care if you believe in that called God. God is acting. It's not paying attention to us. I mean, to believe that God is paying attention to me, is taking care of my life, I think it's wrong. God has the laws of God, right? The law of life, basically. If you're within the law, everything goes well. If you're outside of the law, you feel the heat, so you come back to the proper place. But again, he gives a much broader view of what God is. God is the center of which all emanate and to which all the powers of the universe return. Everything from God, everything back to God. To see this truth, one must be disconnected from the narrow rules, from vulgar practices, to reject the coarse forms with which religions have involved the supreme ideal. You must study God in the majesty of his works. So what Léon Denis does here, he tries to pull us away from the narrow views we have from God. He says, forget it. Don't pay attention to all you've been taught about God. That was created by man. Try to see God, or try to understand God throughout his works, throughout God's works, right? And he talks about the jewels of God. Take a look at these pictures, how beautiful they are. The bird, the flowers, this flying insect. Contemplate the living beings that populate Earth, birds, insects, plants, and flowers. Each one of them is a wonderfully carved, a jewel of the divine. Observe yourselves. Take a look at your body, your soul, yourself, your intelligence, your character. See the admirable performance of the organs, the wonderful and complicated mechanism of the senses. What human genius could imitate these delicate masterpieces? We're still trying to make robots, right? Some robots are already doing something amazing. Or even if you take the cell phone, already what this do is something, right? But nothing is as complete as the work of God, right? That's what he suggests us to pay attention, to try to reflect and try to understand God throughout these fantastic masterpieces, as he says. Beauty, splendor, and harmony. Consider all things and ask whether so much beauty, splendor, and harmony can result from chance, or if there is, above all, an intelligence cause presiding over the order of the world and the evolution of life. The answer is clear, right? But then comes the question, very good question that everyone asks themselves. We all ask ourselves this question. Okay, but who created God if God created everything? Answer is, God is not a being who joins this series of beings. Interesting. We go on a very common way of seeing things. If we were created by someone who created this one, it says, no, it's a different logic. God is the universal being with no limits in time and space, consequently, infinite, eternal. There can be no being above nor beside God. God is the source and principle of our life. It's via God that all individuals' forces reconnect, unite, and harmonize. And without God, they would be isolated and divergent. So it's like maybe like a magnet or something, like an orbit, right? Everything goes around God, is the source of the whole thing. Originating and converging to the supreme intelligence. The fact that there is a general plan, a common purpose in which all the powers of the universe participate, proves the existence of a cause, a supreme intelligence, which is God. Again, he defines God as the supreme intelligence, same as Kardec did, as per the information Kardec received from the spirits, the high-level spirits, right? The very developed ones. And then I took from this information here that there is a general plan, and everything connects to the other things. I took some slides from a previous presentation I made on COVID-19, etc. See if you agree with this. So many people died. Just in Brazil, basically 600 people have already passed away with COVID, which is very sad. People feel very sad about that, right? When someone you know, when it's part of your family, could be vaccinated, blah, 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 etc. There's a whole entire conversation about that. But take a look at this person. This person who died, this body that you see there, or that's inside of this plastic cover, is made of what? Is made of atoms, is made of molecules, is made of cells, tissues, bones, veins, everything, right? But basically atoms, basically molecules. This is a molecule. See, this round thing, suppose it's a molecule. This molecule, once the body perishes, it's transformed. It might be transformed, for example, in a lettuce or in a worm or anything else. Suppose it was transformed in a lettuce. This atom that belonged to a body is now inside, is now an atom that is inside of this lettuce. And suppose this lettuce is eaten on a salad by this lady, and she's pregnant. This molecule that was from the body of someone that became a molecule from the lettuce that was eaten and transformed by the body of this woman into something else will go forward, and maybe will be an atom in the cheek of this beautiful boy, right? So you see the transformation of matter, how everything is connected. And who says that's not Spiritism? Is this professor, Joe Allen Paulus, professor of mathematics, wrote quite a few books. He's from Temple University in Philadelphia, and he was rewarded by some associations, including the American Association for the Advancement of Science. So it's supposed to be a guy who knows what he's talking about. I came to this professor, talked to my brother, who is a biologist, a professor of biology, and to my brother-in-law, who is a physicist, a physical PhD professor of University of Physics. And I asked them, is it true that all material transforms? He says, yes, in terms of the physics says so, the biology says so. And my brother gave me the name of this professor, and I searched for his book. He has one of the books is called Innumeracy, Mathematical Illiteracy and its Consequences. And among the things he says there, he says the following: what are the chances that you have inhalated, how to say that? Inhalado, I don't know how to say in English, a molecule that Caesar exhaled on his last breath? The astonishing answer is that the probability is higher than 99% that once you inhale your breath, there was a molecule that Caesar spread when he was dying. Até tudo Brutus, até tudo. When he said Brutus, he relates that. 2,000 years after the death of Caesar, the exhaled molecules are spread evenly around the globe, and the majority of it is still free in the atmosphere, meaning it's there, it's changing. Everything that we see, we don't see, everything that we touch, everything is material that has come from previous organizations. Then there's the formula he used for that. I'm not going to that, but the last sentence from him is quite interesting. He says, again, he's not Spiritist, as far as I know, he's not. He's a scientist, right? He's a man of science. It is quite intriguing that we all are, at least in that sense, parts one of each other. Isn't it fantastic? This science is saying that. So what happened is matter transforms itself. Maybe the atom or the molecule that's on the carrot was already this fox, or maybe this hummingbird, or maybe the flower, or maybe this green plants, or maybe even one of those sea animals. Everything is connected. We're transforming matter all the time. This is what scientists call biogeochemical cycle. This is science. But if you think, it's also there on the Bible, right? You're dust, and to dust you shall return. Isn't it fantastic? Doesn't it make sense? Né? So everything is connected. Here, again, let's go back to Spiritism. There's a general plan, a common purpose. All the powers of the universe participated. You don't have to want to participate. You are participating. A supreme intelligence coordinates it all, which, in the absence of a better name and definition, we might call God. Isn't it fantastic, the link between science and life? Chapter 5, Successive Lives. In this chapter 5, he talks about incarnations and the link between the incarnations. And he says something very beautiful. We are the artisans of ourselves. Let's take a look. Where to go? Man must first learn to know himself in order to lighten his course. Very important. To walk with a steady step, you need to know where you're going. Basic, isn't it? But we don't. It's by conforming their acts with the higher laws that man will work effectively for his very improvement and the social environment. The important thing is to discern these laws, to determine the duties they impose on us, to predict the consequences of our actions. This might be called happiness as well. If you are acting conforming the laws of life, you're going to have peace. You're going to be calm. You're going to have a better instruments to evaluate your life and to relate to everyone around you, to relate to all the things and the happinesses that are happening around you. This is happiness, to have a life that's meaningful, to have a life that you understand and where you can act. It's a very old, know thyself and you shall know the universe and the gods. This sentence is supposed to have been said by Socrates, but for what I read, it's there before Socrates. It's in the Apollo temple in Delphi, in Greece, and was written before even Socrates. But it doesn't matter if it's Socrates or anyone. It's clearly something very truth, right? We have to know ourselves, and once we do, everything is okay. You're going to know God and the whole entire universe. So our aim in life is to know ourselves and to act from there. As he said before, as Denis said, we have to know where we're going so we can act accordingly. But Léon Denis also says something very interesting concerning ourselves. He said, we are very young yet spirits. That's why we make so many mistakes. The vast majority of mankind walk the common road in the midst of the dark night, ignorant of itself, not understanding the real purpose of existence. Thick darkness obscures human reason. We have to change this. Why is that? It's because this globe, Earth, is on a lower rung on the scale of worlds. Here reside mostly infant spirits, that is, souls born for reason not so long ago. Wow, what a definition. Matter rules sovereign in this world. It bows under its yoke, limits our faculties, stiffs our impulses for good and our aspirations for the ideal. Meaning, why life is so tough? Life is so tough because of us. Because we're still very rude. We're still very infant. We were born for reason, as it says, not too long ago. We're still learning. We're still toddlers, as a matter of speak, right? We'll learn that. And it's easy to see when you see our environment. Take a look, think about your job. Probably there's a lot of competition there. There might be lies, plenty of stress, greed, and also violence. If not on your job, around you. If not around you, in the globe. This is part of our life nowadays still, unfortunately. Also on what we do to ourselves. We use drugs, alcohol, tobacco. We abuse of everything, including food. This shows that we're far away from being reasonable spirits yet. We're moving, we're growing, but it's still not there. And this is why we have so much sadness. We feel we're not doing well, we're not happy, there's something missing, and then we buy new shoes. We're not feeling well, then we buy a new car. We're not feeling so good, then we travel. Life's not so nice, then let me eat a lot of cake. We choose to feel better. We choose maybe some other things than to analyze ourselves. He talks about the material concerns as well. He says, to discern the reason for life, to see the supreme law that governs souls and worlds, we must know how to free ourselves from these heavy influences, to let go of the material concerns, from all these passing and changing things that obscure our spirits and our judgments. From the above, it will unfold for us the immense panorama of the ages without account and of spaces without limits. What does he mean by that? Not that you cannot have a nice car, not that you cannot have some money, you need money, not that you cannot buy new clothes, new shoes, whatever you want. It's your problem. But he says this should not be our main intention in life. We should not drive all our efforts to that. There's something we need to leave. But apart from that, maybe this will be those distractions he mentioned beforehand. Remember, distractions that will take our view outside of our aim and will distract us with many things around us. Then we're going to lose time, we're going to stop all the time instead of going straight forward, speeding up the process to become wiser people, more responsible people, more morally developed people, more intellectually capable people. In all that together means that we're going to be better, more developed spirits. That's the evolution of the spirits. Pride, indifference, egoism, he said, all this has got to disappear. And all this is linked to the material concerns. The majestic order, he says, far from the noises of earth and away from its miseries, we will discover the universal harmony. All that from down here seems contradictory, inexplicable, and unjust, when seen from above, will present itself very harmonic and full of logic. Oh, how cool. Everything unites, it's chained. To the spirit, fascinated, appears that the majestic order that regulates the whole entire universe. What does Denis says here to us? Calm down, cool yourself. What's really a fantastic, big, deep, hard problems nowadays for you, it's nothing. As you move up and you see the whole entire life of yourself, including all the incarnations you had, all the links that those incarnations have with other people, all the relationships that were broken and have to be restored, all this together, you say, wow, it makes total sense. It was tough, makes sense. So we should always try to move away from the narrow view that we have on the daily life and try to move up and take a look from above, like a helicopter view. It's much broader view than when you're looking one-to-one. Life as a conquest, he says the following. From these enlightened heights, life is a mean of intellectual improvement and of moral elevation. A school where one learns sweetness, patience, and duty. And that life, to be effective, cannot be isolated. At the price of labor and suffering, we will conquer what we lack: a perfect reason, a science without gaps, an infinite love for everything that lives. How great is that definition? How great it is. We have to acquire, we have to learn sweetness, patience, and duty, and obligations, I would say. We have to conquer a perfect reason, not just reason, perfect reason, a science without any gaps, and an infinite love for everything, everyone. Is that possible? Yes, it is. Is that going to happen? Yes, it will happen. When? Not tomorrow. we're spirits. We don't die. We don't finish. So we have the whole entire eternity to move forward. But so my interest to move faster, because then I will learn, I will understand more the things, and I will suffer less and be happier and acquire peace. You see, do you perceive that it's something you're going to be building? There's no fast track. You have to, I mean, you can speed up the process if you want to, and I believe you should want to. But again, you have to learn everything, of science and everything. He says the history of humanity is our own history. And then I want to make a break there and say something. If we are spirits who are reincarnating, again, we have one single life. We don't have many lives. We have one life. You're created, like that, God created us. Then you're created as a spirit. Then you incarnate, disincarnate, incarnate. You're birth, or you're born, then you die, then you're born, then you die, and blah, blah, blah. Every single incarnation of yours, or if you want to call it life, okay. Every single life of yours, you learn a whole bunch of things. Once you're a man, then you're a woman. Once you're rich, then you're poor. Once you're healthy, then you're unhealthy. You live in a big city or in a small village. You live in a very developed country or in a very poor country. So to learn everything about everything. That's the history of our life. If you are reincarnating, I think man appeared on Earth 4 million years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Can you imagine how many incarnations we had since then? It might be what? 1,435 or 10,342 or 318 or just 12. Who knows? Right? But during those incarnations, if we've been incarnating here for many, many times, take a look at the history of humanity. It's a beautiful history, isn't it? What's the essence of this history? We as a tribe attack the other tribe. We as a city attack the other city. We as a country attack the other country. Once we do what we do, we fight. If we are the winners, we aprisionate those people, we torture them, we rape them, we make them slaves, and we kill them, right? We murder them. Isn't that the history of life? Isn't that the history of humanity? If that is the history of humanity and is up to date like that, we are bringing with us many problems, right? Many people who hated us because we have raped their children, or we have killed the father, or we have, taken all the money. So that comes with us. That's why life is still tough, because we bring all this with us. And it's in our hands to clean up the process, to take it away, all that's not good enough. Envy, competitiveness, pride, egoism, all this that we know it's not in our favor. We should try to take it away, because it is with us, because we come from history, from incarnations. The great link, Léon Denis says the following: each existence is a link that reconnects in front and from behind. It's all together. The present is the consequence of the past and the preparation for the future. What a sentence. Step to step, the being rises and grows. Everything is linked. If you want to have an idea who you were on your last experiences as a spirit, take a look who you are. What are your characteristics? Are you very angry? Are you very impatient? Are you very greed? Are you very violent? Those characteristics of us give us a view of who we were in the past lives, right? And this is what I like. He says, we are artisans of ourselves. Oh, wow, wonderful. Artisans of her own destiny. The free and responsible human soul chooses her path. And in this path is, if this path is evil, the fall will come. The stones and thorns that will tear the soul apart will have the effect of developing her experience and clarifying her nascent reason. We are the artisans of ourselves. We make our life as we wish. A better life or a tougher life. A better future or a tough future. If we have nowadays a tough life, who should you complain with? With God? With Jesus? With your mother? With who? With yourself. Because if we're having a tough life, we didn't conquer to ourselves enough knowledge, enough development to have a more calm and better life nowadays. That's why, again, there are differences between, say, twin brothers. One is much happier, life seems much lighter to this one than to this one, because this one has conquered that throughout a lot of hard work. We are artisans of ourselves. It's in our hands to change our lives. Chapter 6, Justice and Progress, the unceasing progress. The higher law of the universe is unceasing progress, the ascension of beings to God, the focus of our lives. From the depths of the abyss of life, by an infinite route and a constant evolution, we move near to God. Our advancement and future happiness are our work. It's in our hands. Olha que legal. Take a look at this, what he says now, how cool. Grace has no reason to be. Justice radiates all over the world. It's not grace. It's not God gives you because God wants you to be happy and wants the other one to be unhappy. You conquer your happiness. You conquer peace. You are, as he said, the artisan of your future. The purification process, he says, just as the coarse material, when under action of fire and water, gradually transforms into pure metal, also the human soul, under the heavy hammer of pain, transforms and fortifies. The soul purified, sanctified by trials, sees painful incarnations cease, so we don't have to reincarnate forever. It lives forever the material globes and elevates itself to the magnificent range of the happy worlds. So meaning, it's a purification process. Again, you start taking away all that doesn't belong to you anymore, that you don't need anymore. Once we acquire wisdom, we can clearly define what's good for us, what's not good for us. And then we will move away from what we might believe it's good for us, but hurts other people, etc. That's not good for us. So that's the purification process. I call that the Darwinism of the spirit. Each step forward, the spirit sees the horizons widen, the sphere of action to grow, perceives more and more distinctly the great harmony of laws and things, participate in a closer, much more effective way. Meaning, the more I know, the wider will be my view. That's easy to understand. It's the same here. If you don't go to school, you're going to see little. If you went to a little bit of school, you see more. If you went really high in school, you open up your views, right? You understand more things because you've learned. We have known or will know successfully all phases of social life and go through all its means. In the past, we were like savages. In the future, we can rise at the height of their mortal geniuses. We forge and break our own shackles. Useless to seek hell in the unknown or distant regions. Hell is in us, hiding in the ignored recess of the guilty soul. No need to explain, right? That's the process of growing. The spirit grows. This picture that I put here, that it's well known, like explaining the progress of mankind, it can also be applied to the spirit itself. Once the spirit is really young yet, as we are, you only see what's on your feet, right? Because you're looking down. Once you start to move up and looking more up, you widen your view. Then you start to understand more every single thing in life. The big question: why do we lose the memory of previous incarnations if we are reincarnating? Through the process to transpose the steps, how many tears shed, how many blood shed in our deeds? Many. We have hated and practiced injustice. That's the history of mankind again, right? What a moral burden this long prospect of faults for still diffused and faltering spirits would be. We would not be able to stand all we have done in the past. What a situation for the guilty, marked by the burning iron for all eternity. Hatred and error would be perpetuated, digging deep in the liable divisions within humanity already so torn apart. God did well by erasing from our weak brains the memory of a terrible past. Our past was terrible. Because that's what we are. We are still learning. We did a lot of bad things. And we still are doing. And 2,000 years from now, we're probably going to see what we were in this 21st century. Say, oh, we were savages by then. You know, we took pieces of a daddy body of chicken or pork or cow or something we used to eat. How wonderful. Oh, that's gross. You see how things change as time passes, right? That's the process of improving. First cause, relief of this heavy luggage, we move forward with faster steps on the roads that are open to us. However, this past is not raised in such a way that we cannot see some of the traces. If we analyze ourselves with care, our tastes and aspirations, we will discover things in our current existence and with the education received that cannot be explained. So just analyze yourself, you see who you were. As for the faults, which imply a necessary atonement in this life, even if momentarily erased in our eyes, their first cause continues to exist, always visible. That is, our passions and impetuous characters, which the new incarnation aim to tame. So we have to clean the last spots. Probably we have a lot of spots that are still within us. So, but nothing is so bad. We also inherited, we carry with us our intellectual moral development. That's what he says here. If we lose that, we have our judgment, we have our character with us. All that is innate to us. It's nothing but the intellectual moral heritage that we have inherited from the faded lives. So we carry what we conquered as well. Since the purpose of life is intellectual and moral improvement of us, of being, what conditions, what means would best suit us to accomplish it? It's for each one to respond. And then he says the difference between wealth and misery. He says, which one is tougher? What's the use of being rich or poor? Wealth often dries the human heart, extinguishes this inner flame, this love for progress and social improvement that animates every general soul. It erects a barrier between the powerful and the humble. Misery also has its appalling dangers: character degradation, despair, and suicide. But while wealth makes us indifferent and selfish, poverty, by bringing us closer to the humble, makes us share the pain. But anyhow, it's necessary to have suffered by itself to appreciate the suffering of others. That does not mean that money is a problem. You must have money. And Spiritism says there's no problem as long as it's money that you earn honestly. And more important than that, as long as you know how to use that money. If you have some money, if you're a rich person, how are you using your money? How are you using what is given to you, what's put on your hands? Just for your own satisfaction, hedonism, or are you using to educate other people, to help other people, to lower the miseries of your fellow beings? Good life, good death. The wise spirit will ask for what's necessary to the conservation of organism, and that's all. But it will avoid falling into pernicious habits, becoming prey to the numerous fictitious needs that are scourges of humanity. He will, above all, care for the pleasures of intelligence and the jewels of the heart. The pleasures of intelligence, oh, how fantastic, and the jewels of the heart, intellectual and moral. And when finally, after a well-completed existence, the solemn hour comes, it will be calmly, without regret, that he or she will welcome death. His or her conscience, detached from the material shadows, would rest before him or her as a judge, a representative of God, asking, "What have you done with life?" Take a look. Some people say the judgment day, when God's going to judge us, blah, blah, blah. Spiritism says a bit different. It says, you judge yourself. Once you leave your body and you come back to become only a spirit, you're going to review your whole entire existence, mainly the last one. You're going to say, oh, I should have done this, this, and that. I didn't do it. I missed it. Oh, what a waste of time. Or the opposite. Wow, fantastic. I've not done everything, but I've improved out of 10 things I should improve. That's great. I'm glad I did it. Let's move forward. Let's go for the next one. So we judge ourselves and we take actions for the future improvement of ourselves. Chapter 8, it's only 9 chapters. The supreme purpose, right? And on this chapter 8, he says about the transformation of society and about this, what he calls the experimental spiritism, meaning the communication between man and the deceased. You will always live. You were born with innate faculties, infinite aspirations, and eternity is given to you to develop and satisfy one another. I just love the sentences Léon Denis puts. Look, what a wonderful sentence this is. We were born with faculties, infinite aspirations, and we have just eternity to make these things come true. Isn't that fantastic? Isn't that very... it makes you calm, isn't it? It makes you believe that you're doing right, you're the proper way. Do you see the splendid skies, the flaming stars, these innumerable suns dragging in their prodigious evolutions, brilliant processions of the planets? Do you see all the stars in the sky? Well, if you do, he says, they'll come to an end. But you will always live, continuing in your eternal march into an unceasing, renewed creation. Here, he barely touched death. Why should we be so worried about death if we are undieable? I don't know if that word exists in English, but if you cannot die, ever. If you commit suicide, you don't commit suicide. You're killing your body. You're not killing yourself. It's impossible to kill ourselves. It's impossible to finish a spirit. That's very rewarding, isn't it? A beautiful trajectory. What then will be for your purified great soul, few shadows and care of the present? Ephemeral accidents of your course will leave deep in your memory no more than sad or sweet memories. So the most difficult problem you're facing today will be nothing in eternity. That's easy to understand, isn't it? If you even think about the problems you had 10 years ago, or 15 or 20 years ago, or 2 years ago, they don't bother you much anymore, do they? Few of them still are there. But as time passes, they become so small in the whole entire life. Now imagine on the whole entire infinite life that you as a spirit have. Then measure in their value the things of earth. Another good sentence. You will understand that the goals of life are not joyance nor happiness, but above all, the development of the soul. The personality for which you will be recognized beyond the tomb in the shape you have been carving for yourself in the course of your earthly existence. So we mold ourselves, and that's what matters, much more than other things, material, mortal, earth things. Chapter 8, he says about experimental tests. Oh, sorry, this is the one who's going to talk about the perispirit, etc. Perispirit, now he explains a bit about that. The soul has a fluidic body, a vapor of vaporous matter, quintessential, called perispirit, which pre-exists and survives the material body. It is by the action of the perispirit, a subtle organism, combined with the vital fluid of mediums, that the spirit manifests itself to man, making us hear blows, displacing objects corresponding by conventional sights. In certain cases, it can even become visible, tangible, produce direct writing, messages, and even prints and molding of materialized objects. In this era, when Léon Denis was writing this book, everything was happening in Europe. In 1850, more or less, on all the parties, all the conference courts that were taking place in the whole entire Europe, Paris, London, Amsterdam, all parts, Vienna, people were playing this game of asking the spirit something. Am I going to die soon? Am I going to get married to him or to her? And the spirit will respond. If it's yes, go talk, one knock. If no, two knocks or something like that. This was really into fashion those days. And that's where Spiritism all started, because Kardec started to take a look at that and analyze that. Kardec, was the founder of Spiritism, was the guy who organized the whole Spiritism philosophy, right? So at this time, this effects were happening a lot. This phenomena was happening to show people that there was something apart from matter. And he says, with this knowledge that comes from these spirits, there's vast consequences. Fatigate from theories and systems, the human spirit, in the face of every new statement, complains today for evidence. This was the time of positivism, right? You have to have evidence for everything. Science was booming. It was the time of Darwin. Right? These proofs of existence of the soul, of immortality, experimental spiritualism brings us, meaning psychography, I don't know how to say in English, psychophony, when the spirit talks through the voice of a medium. All this was happening. Even materialization was common at times. With it, vast consequences will come. With social transformations bring positive basis and a solid point of support to moral laws and the ideal of justice, without which no civilization could grow. So what does it mean? It's necessary that we change the way we were coming. Time have came at that time, and this is coming for us to change the way we behave as humanity. And what he calls experimental spiritism is giving proof of the post-existence of life, so we can change the way we think about everything. The last chapter, summary and conclusion. Basically, Léon Denis says there are 4 principles in Spiritism. After all, he's told us on this little book. In short, the principles that come from Spiritism, taught by disembodied spirits, which are in a much better position to discern the truth than us, are the ones that follow. 1, the existence of God. And we understood that God is not a person, is not a human being, it's something much broader than that. 2nd, immortality of the soul. The soul comes from previous incarnations and will move forward to other incarnations and indestructible, right? 3rd, the communication of the so-called living with the so-called dead, which has not started with Spiritism. That has been forever around humanity. In the ancient Rome, ancient Greece, in the Mayas, Aztecas, Incas in the Americas, with the Vikings, everywhere. And 4th, infinite progress of the soul. Such are the teaching of experimental spiritism. They are not other than the early Christianity, detached from the forms of material worship, stripped from the dogmas, false interpretations, errors, under which man has concealed and kept unrecognizable the philosophy of Christ. What he's saying? In other words, this is the philosophy of Christ, clear from all the dust. And when he talks about the phenomena, the things that happen, the materialization, the spirits talking, etc., he says, why is that? However, despite of the high value of this doctrine, the man of this century, that century, right, the 19th century, deeply skeptical, as it is nowadays, dulled by his prejudice, as it is nowadays, would hardly have made sense of it if facts had not come to support it. The reach of human spirit, superficial and indifferent, material, noisy manifestations were necessary. That's why in 1850, and by various means, furniture of all shapes was swayed, walls retracted with sound blows, heavy bodies moved contrary to known physical laws, But after this gross phase, spirit phenomena became increasingly intelligent. Nowadays, there are very few manifestations of these kind of things, things moving from a place to the other, materialization, because there's no need for that anymore. Now it's much more of a intelligence working, right? We're much more into the philosophy of Spiritism than the phenomenal Spiritism, which is much better because that's what really matters, right? In Brazil, at least on the places I go to, the centers I go to, much less manifestations via mediumship are happening. It's much more important to do what we're doing today, to understand the philosophy behind Spiritism, which is very similar to the Stoic philosophy and to the Christ's philosophy as well. If we understand that, when we change ourselves, that's what matters, not any manifestation or something. And he goes just close to the end, he says about selfishness. Every man who observes and reflects cannot deny that the modern society is going through a threatening crisis. A deep decomposition corrodes itself. All means are good for acquiring well-being, fortune, the only goal that's deemed worth of life. That's very much the same today still. Such aspirations can produce only two consequences: the merciless selfishness among the happy, and despair and revolt among the unfortunate. This has changed a bit, but not much. We have seen some improvement on society, right? For example, women could not vote at that time. I was taking a look here in the UK. Women only acquired the right to vote in 1918. In Brazil, in 1932. And believe it or not, in Switzerland, only in 1971. See how long it takes for us to move into our habits, right? Children labor was common at that time when he was writing. When he wrote this book, in Brazil, basically only 4 years before he wrote this book, we had slavery. So things change. Slavery is not allowed anymore nowadays, but it takes a while to change. So we have to keep moving to change for the better. And his last quote on this last chapter before we finished is he says, there is a new philosophy which is going to help us to move. Remarkable thing is that this new science, this new philosophy, pay attention, it doesn't say religion, it says new science, new philosophy, is simple and accessible to all, which is fantastic, right? You don't need a priest, you don't need a pastor, you don't need anyone to explain this to you. It's easy to understand. Anyone can reach this understanding. Accessible to all, free from every device and form of worship. Be brothers, help yourselves in your collective march. Your objectives are beyond this material and transitory life. It will be in this spirit of future that we will gather as members of one family. The earth, free from the scourges that deter it, will continue its moral ascent and rise on the scale of the world. So he basically finishes the book saying, there is a way out. Spiritism, according to him, is the way out. Of course, there's plenty of different ways out. But Spiritism explains life, explains who we are, what we are, how we could deal with life, right? So I try to summarize the things, says the following. This is a saying I like very much. He says, the uncertainty of living on the other side of the tomb in the fullness of our faculties and our consciousness makes the fear of death vanish. Once you know you don't die, you don't fear dying any longer. The knowledge of happy or painful situations experienced by spirits for their good or bad deeds has a powerful moral action. So once you know that everything you do will come back to you in a way or the other, for your good or not for so good for you, we start to take the right way out. The perspective of infinite progress, of intellectual achievements, which await all beings, and lead them to the common destinies, can, by itself, bring men closer together, united by fraternal bonds. So take a look. No fear of the death, walking on the moral side of life, united all together as brothers. This, he says, is a new philosophy that responds to all the moral needs of humanity. That's the view of Léon Denis on what Spiritism is all about. And basically, I think, friends, he did answer the 3 basic questions he puts on the beginning of his book, on the cover of Pourquoi la vie, right? C'est que nous sommes, d'où nous venons, où nous allons, não é isso? What are we? We're spirits. Not who, what. We are spirits. Where do we come from? Easy. We come from previous experiences. We can see that all the time in our personality and on the other's personality as well. And third question, where are we going to? It doesn't matter. We're going wherever needed to keep progressing forever. Isn't that spectacular? Who cares where we're going? We're going to move forward, always forward. It's up to us all the time. And if you want to reduce that to one very single question, it's basically the title of the book. It could be The Why of Life, or maybe the title should be The Reason of Life. I don't know. Or we can change to a more common question. What is the meaning of life? According, at least to my interpretation, to what I read on this fantastic small book of Léon Denis, the question to what is the meaning of life is, the meaning of life is to have a meaningful life. And it's up to you to decide what for you is a meaningful life. We just have to think, decide, and move forward. And before we finish, I just want, Adam, before I give back to you the words, to say that tomorrow is the anniversary of Allan Kardec, right? You guys know that Allan Kardec, first name was Hippolyte Léon Denis Rivail. He adopted the name of Allan Kardec, which suppose was his name on a previous incarnation. And he was born in October 3rd, 1804, meaning that tomorrow actually, he would be 217 years of his birth date. We don't worship him. We don't have any idols in Spiritism. We should not have any idols. One of the beauties of Spiritism is that it doesn't belong to anyone. We don't have a maximal authority. No one has the right to talk in the name of the Spiritism, right? But having said that, he was very, very, very important for Spiritism. He was the person, a teacher, an intellectual, a disciple of Pestalozzi, who decided to investigate using scientific method of asking the same question to many different people around the globe, mediums. He asked the same question, saw the answers, and when the answers linked, he said, this is true because it's coming from different sources, the very same response. And so with that, he wrote the Book of Spirits, the Gospel according to Spiritism, Heaven and Hell, Genesis, enfim. He wrote fantastic books. I'm a very good fan of the writings of Allan Kardec. I based all my speeches on Kardec's books. I personally, even though I'm a writer and I wrote 3 books, I believe you don't need any book to study Spiritism apart from the books of Kardec. And I strongly recommend you study Kardec. Don't waste your time with quote unquote silly books, romantic books about Spiritism. They have a value because they introduce Spiritism to people. But these are the books, Kardec's books are the ones who really give you very good and profound answers. So for Allan Kardec tomorrow, happy birthday. And I go back to you. Thank you for your attention. Going back to Adam. Adam, thank you. Can't hear you.
Of course, I had myself on mute, which
it's very common. Everyone does.
Yep. I was going to say thank you so much. I got distracted because the way that you presented that was so engrossing and so great that I forgot that I was supposed to be here to host this today.
Difficult was the language, right? No one used. I think it was Esperanto. This guy was speaking or something.
Yeah. But look, for such a small book, actually a pamphlet, a little brochure, and it turns into such a huge work which is so profound in its knowledge. I think it is a phenomenal amount of thing, and also it shows how well Léon Denis was in taking everything that Spiritism can teach us and putting it in a way that makes us think.
Apart from that, I fully agree with what you just said. the way he says things is fantastic. Some of his phrases, I said, wow, how it was me, because it's so fantastic, it's so clearly stated. That's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. So while we wait for people to send their questions and comments in, so please, if you have any questions for Alexandre, please put them in now. Now is your chance to send us your questions. I do have a couple of things popped up on the chat already, but we'll come to them in a moment. But first, let's go to the announcements on behalf of the British Union of Spiritist Societies. So, just a reminder that Spiritual Light is a weekly live, which is at 9 p.m. UK time every week with Charles Kempf, Elsa Rossi, Sylvia Gibbons, and Stephen Bertozzo. And you can find that on the Facebook and YouTube channels of BUS, the Irish Federation, Kardec Radio, etc. Please make sure that you go and watch and support that show. Our next Léon Denis talk next month will be with Daniel Stiegel, who'll be talking about Léon Denis, a new perspective on pain. So that is on 6th of November. Oh, sorry, there's an issue with the image. 6th of November at the same time, 4 p.m. here in the UK. And of course, if you have not been able to catch the previous ones, or you want to watch any of these wonderful talks again, you can find them on Facebook and YouTube of the channels that are broadcasting right now. So BUS, the Irish Federation, Kardec Radio, and Kardec Group. See, including Alexandre, we've now had 10 talks on this subject. Such a lot we can learn from Léon Denis. Tomorrow, there will be a special presentation talking about the Hebrew version of the Spirits book with Severino Celestino, Paolo Zamp, Elsa Rossi, and Miriam Levy. That will be at 5 p.m. here in the UK. But before that, please come and join us for this wonderful talk. You were mentioning just now about the birthday of Allan Kardec. Indeed, Charles Kemp from France will be with us to talk about Allan Kardec, a pioneer of science and spirituality. That will be at 11 a.m. UK time here on whatever channel you're watching us from right now. From the other groups here in the UK, as a reminder, our good friends, the Spiritist Society of Bournemouth, in conjunction with Poole Christian Spiritualist Church, are having their fortnightly talks based on the psychological series of the spirit Joanna de Angelis. The most recent was with the psychologist Marlon Rakedow, and the next one will be coming up in just a few weeks' time. Well, in fact, I think coming up this Friday with Charles Kempf. So you can find that on the YouTube and Facebook channels of the Spiritist Society of Bournemouth and Poole Christian Spiritualist Church. It's now 1 year since we launched the High Five charity campaign to help raise funds for poor communities in Brazil for two specific groups, Grupo Espírito Sheila in Bahia and Instituto Multirão in Curitiba. And these groups work with the poor communities, helping them with their basic needs such as food, education, jobs, housing. And donations are desperately needed for this. If you have spare £5, £10, £20, £1, please come and give us a high five. Come and help us to put a smile on someone's face, because we can help them buy food. So you can find all the information about that on the Kardec Group website, www.kardec.org.uk/high5. And you can see that address there on the screen. And you can find all the details of how to make a transfer either to us or directly to the groups in Brazil. Insightfully Speaking is a podcast by Kardec Group as well, looking at the world from a spiritist perspective. And you can find this on YouTube as well as all main podcast stations. And you can see pictures here of all the wonderful guests we've had so far. So the most recent, which will be coming out soon, is with Ingo Meyer from Germany. We've also had Wagner Gersis from Brazil, the director of the film adaptation of Nossolar, and of course the Netflix special of Kardec. We've had Charles, Dan, Natasha, Steven, Tanya, Florenzo, Fred, and Danusa as well. So if you have not had a chance to listen or watch the show yet, please do, and let us know what you think. But we have an even bigger, more special announcement for you all right now. Spiritism X is coming back this year for the 3rd edition. So Spiritism X 2021, Understanding Our Multidimensional Journey. So for those of you who haven't seen this event before, it is a series of short talks, a bit like TEDx, where the talks about around 15 minutes each, looking at specific topics, things that can help us to understand whatever we're going through here in this existence. So this will be, again, obviously due to the pandemic, an online event this year, and it will be on the 20th and 21st of November. And you can go and register now. There we go. That's the address flashing away on the screen. spiritismx2021.eventbrite.co.uk. Spiritism X. That X is very important. There'll be people saying, oh, we can't access the website. Remember, the X is in there. It's X for exchange, for experience. Spiritism X 2021.eventbrite.co.uk. And one of the benefits is you can enter the prize draw. What are the prizes? Well, go and register. It's a free event, but go and register, and you'll go and find out very soon what the prizes will be, as well as, of course, who's going to be along this year. And we've got some very special guests lined up. And of course, if you want to learn about anything else about Spiritism here in the UK, if you want to contact any of the groups here in the UK, please contact ourselves at Kardec Group, or even better, contact the British Union of Spiritist Societies via the website www.bus.org.uk. That's BUSS. You can contact via email, Facebook, YouTube. All the details are right there, and you should know because you're already watching a bus event. Well, that's that. So let's see, we have a couple of questions here. Let's just go to them. But before we do that, I've got, sorry, thank you for reminding me. I forgot to say hello to everyone who's been watching with us. So let's say hello to Jose, Adriana, Surakiti, Faye, Elza, Libya, Sylvia, Ruben, Sol, Eduardo, Gilberto, Nay, Linda, Val, Antonio, Steven, Francis, Christina, Florjana, Helena, Livia, and Gabrielle. Thank you all for being with us today. So sorry, small technical issues. Here we go. So we have a question from Elsa herself. So Elsa Rossi from BUS. Alexandre, religion in history has made so many dark actions on behalf of Christianity. In our days, we introduce Spiritism as science, philosophy, and moral laws. Can you talk a bit more about that side of things?
Perfect, Elsa. And I'm glad that you come with this sentence. The other day I was talking to Jussara and João, that you all know from the US, responsible for the Spiritism Society in US. And they were saying that in the US, if you approach people with Spiritism as a religion, people will react. They say, no, I have my religion, etc. And again, I think I mentioned on my speech today here, I've seen the result of this research from Pew Institute saying that 80 million people or so in the US says they are religious without religion. They don't have a religion, but they believe in something. These are the people who probably are willing to learn something about Spiritism. Because if Spiritism doesn't approach as a religion, which I firmly believe it's not, and again, I say, Kardec in the What is Spiritism says, we're not atheists, but we're not religious people. For me, it's so clear. And I think we should stress more and more this philosophical aspect of Spiritism. I think two things do not contribute much to Spiritism, or three things. One of them is this, be considered a religion. Because of what you just said, Elsa, there's so much problems with the religions in the past, and religions were important in the history of humanity to put us, the rude people we were, into some chains and say, go this direction, don't move away. No? But not nowadays anymore. According to Léon Denis, again, we are acquiring autonomy. So maybe we don't need anymore this narrow corridor to move on. So religion is one. I think the phenomena of Spiritism is something also that doesn't attract many people nowadays, right? Because it might go against your rationale. Say, this thing about materialization, I don't know if I believe on that. To the point that nowadays it almost doesn't happen anymore. Even communications are much less frequent than they were in the past. It's much more something as a philosophy, which I think is much better. And the third one, and many people probably won't agree with what I'm going to say, but some of the books of some very well-known authors in Brazil that describe the world of the spirits, when they say a spirit is drinking soup, a spirit has a house that has bought with the money he or she received from the work he had on the spirit's world, and he has a pet, and you can leave your house to your family when you reincarnate and the other one disincarnate. I don't think that helps much, because people say, it doesn't make sense. So my opinion, Elsa, I think we should focus on what really matters, which is what Léon Denis just said in this book. Let's change ourselves. Let's become better people. That's so fantastic. It's so gives you such a peace of mind, doesn't it, Adam? And it's what's important, because if we become better people with people around us, then humanity will improve. As easy as that, as simple as that, and it's going to happen. So I think Spiritism should focus on the philosophy side of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that is one of the beauties of Spiritism. It's there. It's this wonderful tool that can help us. Let me see what I write down myself. This wonderful tool that can help us understand these challenges that we go through in life. And yes, no, religions are there. If people want to follow a religion, follow a religion. If you want to use a philosophy such as Spiritism as well, so be it.
Yeah.
So be
they
it.
can go in parallel. They can complement themselves, maybe.
Yep. And now going back to an item that you'd mentioned regarding what's even written in the Old Testament about where we come from, and the little molecule that went from the corpse back into the lettuce, back to the pregnant woman, back into the cheek of the child. Faye Waddington has asked. So Léon Denis was saying before other scientists that we are all stardust. Well,
interesting. First, the example is a bit gross, isn't it? From the corpse to the lettuce to the pregnant woman, but just to show the transformation of things. I don't know if he was, maybe so, because he used the universe and the stars as an example. In a poetical form, maybe he was saying so, that we are dust of the stars. But my understanding is that everything that's material is transforming. The important thing is not that. The important thing is there's a plan and everything matches. That's the great thing that he says, right? There's a plan behind everything. And even if you're willing or not, you're part of it. If you believe in God or not, doesn't matter. You're part of it. So there is a reason behind everything. That's the most fantastic thing. And he uses that to prove that there is God. But for me, the most important thing, Faye, is that the way he tries to explain God, he doesn't. The other day, Adam, I was talking to a priest in Brazil, very intelligent person, and I said, "How do you define God?" He thought for half a second, said, "To define God is better not to define." I said, "Well, wise. Very." First, I thought, he's trying to skip from my question. No, I think he was much wiser than me. He gave a precise definition. Better not to define, because we're not able yet. That's probably what Denis was saying as well. We don't have the word for it, or even more, we don't have the intelligence yet to comprehend, to understand that. So I think, Faye, that's what he was saying. We're all part of a huge plan that we are far away to understand yet, but we can already start to try to see some of the actions of this huge plan around us.
Yeah, absolutely. And in this book right behind me here, the Spirits book, it says so eloquently that even the Spirits say, look, we can't explain everything to you. You're not ready to understand everything just yet. So hopefully one day we can. One day we can.
Adam, could we explain, say, how do you call that? The thing that you use to move around with your car? Whatever, Instagram or YouTube, or that's not the one I want to say. Waze. Could you explain Waze to my grandfather? Never. Could never understand, right?
No,
So how
no.
can we understand this thing some 30, 40 years ago was impossible to explain?
Hmm.
How could you have something on your pocket without any cables? It would be a telephone, a TV, the cinema, the newspaper, the phone book, a telephone, everything. No, 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 impossible. So how can we try to explain God? For the time being, impossible.
Well, even if we think about it, even 15 years ago, before the iPhone even came out, what were the phones we had? The little ones which only had 3 lines of text. How was the internet 20 years ago? We didn't really have this kind of ability. We were still waiting for images to very slowly download.
I do remember that, unfortunately.
So,
Yesterday on the radio in Brazil, I was listening. They were talking about robots, and the scientists will say robot will become a daily thing, and people say, I don't want a robot, etc. I said, no, imagine a pet, just like your pet, but without the bad part, the bad sides of the pet. You won't have to clean it, you won't have to feed it, it won't die. And then in my car was my wife and my sister-in-law. They say, no, 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 no. Pet is a pet. Pet is different. Pet loves you. You love the pet. I said, well, because we're thinking about a pet as it is and a robot like as it is today.
mhm.
We cannot imagine that the new robot's going to be here in 20 years, 50 years, 200 years. Maybe it's going to be just like the pet. Maybe we'll have a heartbeat. We'll be warm. We'll respond to your feelings. We'll read your feelings. If you're sad, we'll come to you. Maybe it's going to be just like the pet. So it's very difficult for us to go away from the moment and try to imagine what's going to be in the future. We don't have that ability yet.
Yeah, absolutely. We are coming close to needing to wrap up, but we do have another question here. I know that Faye sent another question, but I'm going to go to one from Eduardo. And he says, what can we do when we enter Spiritism, but we have the feeling that Spiritism has not entered us?
Ooh.
Wow. Do we have another 5 hours?
No, five reincarnations, I would say.
Yep.
That was a very good question. Very interesting the way you put it. I would say take it easy, step by step, calm down. We said, oh, this makes so much sense. God, makes so much sense. So I have to improve myself. I have to do this, and that. It won't happen. Won't happen. If the guy who founded the Spiritist Center used to. I still go nowadays in Brazil. He passed away last year, Gerson. He was fantastic. He said, Alexandre, if in this incarnation we only start to understand something, it's good enough. We don't have the rush. So just that you're together, you could touch Spiritism, Eduardo, is already something. And you start to thinking about everything in life. If Spiritism is not yet into you, it will be. It will be, because I'm sure after you start reading Kardec books, Eduardo, if you start listening to some of the speeches on the Spiritist centers, I'm sure you did. If you didn't change something, you did rethink your actions. That's good enough. Right? I think it's like how to say how to say bicycle riding,
Right.
riding a bike, right? You don't start riding a bicycle and go for it. In the beginning, someone holds the seat for you, then takes away, then you go, then you fall down, you cry because you hurt yourself, then you do it again, then you take your hands, you go down again. And one day you're going to be driving a bike without even paying attention, or driving a car when cars have the thing that you change the speed. It becomes natural. I think the same is with Spiritism. As time passes, we start doing. And in the beginning, Eduardo, that's at least my view. Spiritism says we should be, how do you say in English, Adam, fora da caridade não há salvação?
Without charity, there is no salvation.
Spiritism says without charity, there's no salvation. Even if we're not people who live in charity, I personally believe, even if we force ourselves into something we believe is good, it's good enough. Because from the beginning, it's not natural. As time passes, it becomes natural. So my long answer to a small response, don't worry, just leave, just go on. I'm sure you're moving towards.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're going to have to end it there, unfortunately. It'd be wonderful to carry on talking, but we do have other things to be getting on. We've been going for 1 hour 45 minutes now, so I think
Sorry
it's
for that.
about time for us to wrap up. So, Alexandre, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for
Pleasure.
bringing such wonderful knowledge to us today. Do you have
It's
any last considerations for us?
no. It's basically his knowledge, right? It's this gentleman, this spirit was. Uh, we do admire him because he took it firmly to spread the word of Spiritism, to continue or to re-explain or to reinforce, better saying, the wordings of Kardec, and we are all very thankful to him. And no, Adam, just want to thank you, to thank Elsa for the invitation, to congratulate you all for this initiative. I do want to watch all my predecessors on Léon Denis. It's a great opportunity because in a few minutes we can learn all about his books. It's fantastic. I'll take a look. So thank you so much. It was for me really a pleasure and an honor to be with you. Hope to see. Well, we'll see you in December again. So thank you very much. Take care.
Okay, thank you. I will put you backstage for a moment, but don't run away. I'll be back to talk to you in a bit.
Okay.
So let me just say to everyone right now, it is the end of the event. So it leaves me just once more to say a big thank you to Alexandre Caldini for being with us. Thank you for BUS for organizing this event. Thank you to the Irish Spiritist Federation, Kardec Radio and Kardec Group for transmitting this event. And a thank you to all of you who've been out there watching with us today. I will be back with you tomorrow at 11 a.m. as Charles Kempf talks about Allan Kardec, a pioneer of science and spirituality. And don't forget that on the 6th of November, we have Daniel Stiegel with us again for the next Léon Denis talk, looking at a new perspective on pain. So thank you all very much. Take care, and we hope to see you again very, very soon.